I'm astounded. I have no words. I mean, surely the end times are upon us. This is a good Warhammer Fantasy game that's been developed, right? It's a good Warhammer game for PC. It's not a mobile port, or a cash-in, or an obscure Games Workshop spin-off, or Warhammer Chess. This is a good Warhammer game. Sigma-tastic!
When I say I'm astounded, I mean it, because despite being one of the most rich and engrossing fantasy universes to exist, Warhammer has very few decent games made out of it. The only two that come to mind are the sadly closed Wrath of Heroes, still my favourite MOBA to this day, and the unremarkable but still somewhat fun Battle March, also known as Mark of Chaos. But even a bad Warhammer Fantasy game makes a pleasant change to the constant stream of 40k titles added to Steam, and there's still plenty more of those in development. Thankfully this one isn't bad. Well, at least for the most part it isn't. Warhammer End Times take place during, the End Times in Warhammer. Now you'll have to bear with me here because while I do know a lot of my fantasy lore, I can't get into the story here. Supposedly the End Times occur when the Chaos Gods join forces and invade Warhammer World, waging war amongst all the races while they're all solving their own problems. Although it is described as the apocalypse, I don't know if the end times are a decisive conclusion as to what happens to Warhammer World after this event. Unless it started off the Age of Sigmar. I don't know. I mean, the list of retcon stories in this series is longer than Khorne's blistered, throbbing, hate-ejaculating penis. Not that you need to take the lore all that seriously, considering there's 3 races spread amongst 5 classes, so don't try too hard to count the inconsistencies and plot holes. I mean, besides the ones that Games Workshop has already opened up by almost putting the series into public domain. The game takes place in the Empire City of Ubersreik, suffering from all the nastiness you'd expect from any Empire City. Plague, famine, crime, desertion, inquisition, and Skaven.
Okay, so let me tell you about the Skaven. The Skaven are humanoid rats, skulking deep in desolate dwarven ruins and human sewer systems. Originally, they're just ordinary rats just scurrying around until dark magic's the influence of Warpstone and dumb luck made them into sentient assassins, picking off anyone that isn't a subject of the Horned Rat. Now, funnily enough, there was a PlayStation 1 game called Shadow of the Horned. And when he turned into a rat ogre, he was stupidly overpowered and nobody could stop him. Not even that wood elf bitch with the polearm could. What was her name now, Asa or something? She killed me so many times, but I got my comeuppance. But anyway, enough about Wrath of Heroes. Let's get back to Vermintide.
You'll start every session of End Times in the Red Moon Inn, acting as a lobby so you may join fellow heroes and purging the Skaven blight. It's not very spacious, with just enough room to test your abilities range, see your inventory and use the forge to change elements of your weapons. From here you'll take action against the Ratmen and get through the End Times. From the inn you'll be able to use the map to see which missions are available, with there being 9 on launch. They each have almost identical objectives, but your reasons for doing them will vary. You may need to clear out routes in the sewers so traders can smuggle supplies into the city, or perhaps you need to warn people of a gigantic incoming swarm. The first act of the game consists mostly of reaching the end of the map with the occasional wave defense, but the second act does a lot more to make the game feel a lot less like Left 4 Dead, as you'd expected to navigate large open areas and haul supplies into the escape wagon, all the while being gnawed at by the Skaven. Now if you don't want to hear reference and comparison to Left 4 Dead, I'd suggest turning away at this point, because we're going to be using that example a lot, and you can't blame me considering Vermintide is a carbon copy of Valve's own Horde mode game, and yes, I do mean word for word. Okay, except for the verses, because this game doesn't have it. But anyway, not only do the objectives appear eerily similar to one another, but so do the item pickups, the user interface, the way one interacts with objects, the special enemies, and the health and revival system. Just to name a few things. I thought I'd cover that now so we can actually talk about the game on its own merits. One thing I can say that isn't like Left 4 Dead is the emphasis on melee combat, where players will be expected to knock back light and heavy attack foes and parry for their own defense. And you will need to get used to this, because if you just screw around and have no care for your own safety, don't expect to survive any difficulties past normal, and don't expect your group to be happy either. But while there is more use of melee combat here than Turtle Rock Studios' Zombie Rush game, it has a fair few flaws. Heavy attacks take far too long to initiate and do less damage than a single light attack on occasion, but regardless of your equipped weapon, you can have a blast hacking and slashing speedily. The euphoria one gets from biting enemies with your blade is comparable to Slaaneish's many gifts, as the attacks are weighty and cut deep into the Ratman's flesh. Every decapitation, dismembering, disemboweling, in other words beginning with dis, fill you with a grim satisfaction, and even characters who prefer ranged combat can still have a good time with sword and board. The ranged combat too is blessed by the ingenuity of Clan Scry, depending on which character I played as. The Empire Soldier has a cannonball blunderbuss thing, I don't know what it's called, I just call it Sigmar's Fist Up the Horns Rat Sneaky Anus. And it's just total arse. The damage seems to be random and I can't get a handle on the range. However, every other character seems to handle like a dream in ranged combat. Viktor Saltspire, the Witch Hunter, and my favourite character to boot, uses pistols at melee and long range to recklessly gun down and carefully snipe foes at a distance, and Corellian, the Wood Elf Waywatcher, excels in silently killing foes with a bow, making for a vital addition to your team.
So, this is the gate, and there's the winch.
Sadly, team isn't a word that'll appear often in your vocabulary. While you won't get far without your allies, it's easy to get distracted in your own affairs, fending off and chasing after the Council of 13's minions. This will often lead to your doom, and you'll often be reminded, if only for a short while, that communication and synergy are required to stay alive. It's hard to blame people for doing that though when, unlike Left 4 Dead, the maps aren't so much open but contain a lot more winding paths and alternative routes. They all ultimately lead down the same route or even a dead end shortly after following a particular trail, but if you don't talk to each other you end up getting stuck in limbo playing follow the leader. And it does get rather annoying when you're following someone thinking they know the way when really they're just part of the group's hive mind. These levels are sprawling, perhaps to a fault, but at least you'll come across treasures that'll provide end of match bonuses or items that might help you later on in the mission. Despite all of the randomness and chaos, there's absolutely one certainty. The Skaven are always watching, always scurrying to find and hunt down the 4 adventurers. Sometimes you'll come across a couple of them and slaying them will do nothing, but other times a single feasting rat could be flanked by hundreds of others waiting to ambush the unsuspecting. If ever there's a dull moment, it's quickly snuffed out by a deafening, bowel-moving horn, alerting players of another wave of Skaven launching an attack. Because of the rickety, time-worn buildings and messy settings, it's hard to tell where the hordes will emerge from. And I do say hordes in plural because they'll attack from all sides at all times. It never feels like a slog though, even when you're surrounded and need to revive an ally but can never seem to cut the plague-carrying fiends down fast enough. You're always on the move, constantly looking for safety and supplies to make it through another wave, and the objectives are there to help with that. Supplies throughout the levels are comparable to Left 4 Dead, where medical supplies are the equivalent of first aid kits, providing large boosts to health gain. Medical potions are pain pills, providing short relief to offset the embarrassment of being downed again so quickly. Potions of speed and strength work similarly to Left 4 Dead 2's adrenaline, provided you even notice the effects half the time. Bombs work differently though, as they explode on impact and take a slight bit longer to arm and throw. However, their effects are just as devastating and a whole lot more gorgeous to behold.
Alright, I've held off for long enough. You just want to know about the rat men, right? Well, here you go.
As tempted as I am to be offended by how comparable the Skaven are to you-know-what special undead, there really isn't all that much to be said. The gutter runner is the hunter, the pack rat is the smoker, or even the jockey, and that's about it. Honestly, the poison wing globadiers, the rattling gunners, and the storm vermin are great additions to the game. And not only that, they're original. Poison wind globadiers, affectionately called gas rats, throw poisonous bombs to choke the players, rattling gunners rapidly fire warpstone bullets to slow and knock back players from a distance, and the storm vermin are just bulky pikemen that provide an adequate challenge. And if you're lucky, you'll come across the sack rat, which drops helpful items if you kill it before it scurries away. Speaking of booty, when you complete a mission you get a chance at some loot, allowing for character customization. During the game of Ranald's Bones you get to throw dice, and depending on how many light up, you'll get a better quality item for a random character. I really don't get it, but there's loot dice hidden in the maps to increase your chances of getting a better item. It's a nice addition and adds minor replay value to each of the characters, but most of the time the default weapons did me fine, and if you're unsatisfied with your loot you can sacrifice other items to improve it, turn it into reagents used in crafting, or make a brand new one by fusing 5 existing items. A decent system, but hardly exciting stuff.
It's time now to talk about the visuals and the sound design. Bloody hell, my visuals could do with some improving. I mean, it's totally pissing dark in here. I've got to stop filming in the evening. Remind me, guys, do not let me film my next review at this time. Even though it's only 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Bloody winter, I hate it.
The game is, well, Just look at it, it's stunning. This is the first time I've ever seen a Warhammer Fantasy video game given the respect it deserves, perfectly illustrating what it's like to be in an Empire city and seeing the Skaven, and being in first person adds so much depth to such an honour. You have to bear in mind that I'm not running the game at its full capacity, and if the lighting effects, the physics, the textures, the animations, and the sheer detail on every puddle of mud, every slate on every roof looks this good, it'd be mind-blowing to see the game at its visual best, and yet this is the bare minimum I expect when I think of Warhammer. The sound design is also great, adding so much oomph to the weapons and interactions with the environment, at least a lot more than they would in other games. The game is also made better by its voice acting as the Ratcatchers that communicate often, although it doesn't make for a great conversation.
His axe shone silver in the dark, his brow was wrathful bold.
I've heard that one before, in an outdoor tavern. The singer was drunk.
Before we ride the escape carriage out of here, it's time to say a prayer with my final thoughts.
Warhammer End Times Vermintide isn't necessarily Left 4 Dead, even though I did say that previously, but shut up for a minute because I might have a point. Valve's game on its own is a competent and still fairly remarkable zombie game, especially with mods, but Vermintide does what Valve did and more. But whether that's worth its asking price, I can't say. Now, don't be fooled by that though. The game does try new things but stretches them very thin, and the objectives can get incredibly tiring them after doing them just 3 times. It doesn't help that there's little randomness to the encounters, as after a while you know what Skaven type spawns at which moment on which map. But if you can manage with that, you'll have a blast. The combat may feel sluggish and even ineffectual at times, but slight changes to your loadout or character can do wonders for your joy of the game. For you loot whores out there, and don't be offended, I'm one too, stay far away from this game if the word Borderlands pops into your head just once. Getting items is painfully unrewarding 90% of the time, and the other 10% will be when you get a single item that you'll never want to change. If you're a Warhammer fan, I can easily recommend this game for the setting and visuals alone. No weapon, location, character, or any asset is unfaithful to the aesthetic players expect from this intellectual property. Khorne is proud of this monument, Tzeentch ponders how it had not been done before, Slaanesh is envious that he could not have made a better job creating such a masterpiece, and Nurgle? Well, he's just making diseases.
Until the next time, I'm Johnbonne, your #1 source for #2 games. Now if you'd excuse me, I've got to clean the streets of Yorkshire. Not a Skaven or anything, just chows. Ta-ta for now.